When you think 60S Mustang, you probably picture pony cars cruising Main Street, burning rubber on Friday nights, or tearing up SCCA road courses. But buried deep in Ford's backrooms were Mustangs so blisteringly fast they left Corvettes trembling and Mopars spitting their slicks. These were the street terrors, drag strip monsters, and prototype legends that rewrote the rulebook for what a Ford could do when you buried the throttle. Back then, horsepower wars were real. Every Detroit giant wanted bragging rights. For Ford, the Mustang wasn't just a sporty commuter. It was a secret weapon that evolved from a cute secretary's car into a fire-breathing beast that humiliated GTOs, Camaros, and even Shelby's sworn rivals. Some of these cars you've heard about. Some lived and died at the drag strip before you ever saw one on a showroom floor. And a few were so experimental they shouldn't have existed at all. But they did. And today, they stand as proof that the 60S were the wildest, fastest, and most rebellious years the Mustang ever roared through. Top 1 1967 Shelby GT500 Super Snake. In 1967, Carroll Shelby didn't just build a Mustang, he built a tire-shredding rocket so fast it terrified everyone who touched the wheel. The Super Snake was the ultimate Shelby prototype, a street car that could outrun Ferraris and still light up the strip. The idea was simple. Goodyear wanted to test new Thunderbolt tires at insane speeds. Shelby's answer? Drop the same 427 cubic inch side oiler V8 from Ford's Le Mans GT40 into a stock GT500 Fastback. With over 520 horsepower, some say closer to 600, the Super Snake was clocked at 170 plus miles per hour. This was 1967, remember? Your average Corvette barely cracked 140. Outside it looked deceptively normal. Wimbledon white paint, blue stripes, scooped, fog lights. But the magic was all under the hood. Heavy-duty top-loader 4-speed, 4.1 gears, and a big set of cojones to drive it. Shelby planned 50 for the street, but the price was so high that Ford killed the project. Only one Super Snake was ever made. It vanished for decades before being rediscovered and fully restored. Now, it's worth millions. This one-off monster proved that Shelby's team could build a Mustang that not only ran with Europe's best but blew their doors off, and it made the big block Mustang a cult legend. So what if I told you Ford had an even crazier trick up its sleeve? An A/FX Scrag Mustang that ran 10S with a motor so radical the NHRA banned it outright. Let's meet the camera. Top 2 1965 Mustang A/FX 427 SOHC camera drag car. If you think the Super Snake was wild, wait till you hear what Ford unleashed on the drag strip next. The 1965 Mustang A/FX 427 SOHC Camera. This beast was so fast, so radical, the NHRA had to rewrite the rulebook just to cage it. Back in '65, Chrysler's 426 Hemi was dominating every quarter mile in America. Ford refused to let Mopar steal all the pink slips, so they built a monster, the 427 Camera. A single overhead cam V8 with chain-driven camshafts, huge ports, and a 7,000-plus ARPM redline that made big black Chevys look like boat anchors. To squeeze it into the Mustang shell, Ford's advanced factory experimental A/FX team tuck Wimbledon white coupes, acid-dipped the panels, swapped in fiberglass fenders, moved the front axle forward to improve weight transfer, and cut every ounce they could. The end result? Around 615 horsepower on race fuel, but everyone knew it was closer to 650 when the headers were uncorked. Inside there was nothing but a racing bucket, a roll cage, a giant sun tack, and a shifter poking out of the transmission tunnel. Zero creature comforts. 0 to 60 in about 3.5 seconds if you could hook up on bias ply slicks. Quarter-mile times? Mid-10 set, 130 plus miles per hour. Unheard of for a pony car in 1965. Only a handful of these factory freaks were ever built, just enough to spook the NHRA into banning the engine from official competition. Surviving Cammer Mustangs became match race legends, haunting local strips and putting fear into Hemi drivers all over the country. Most of these 427 monsters were run to death, parted out or left to rot behind barns once the match race craze faded. Today, an original A/FX Camera Mustang is the holy grail for Ford drag historian. Find one, and you've found the ghost that nearly destroyed the Hemi era single-handedly. But what happened when Ford shrunk the big block, widened the tires, and let Carcraft build the nastiest street NASCAR Mustang ever? Top 3 1969 Mustang Boss 429. They called it Boss 9 for a reason, because the 1969 Mustang Boss 429 was Ford's ultimate street-legal NASCAR monster. If the camera tore up the drag strip, this one punched Mopar's Hemi right in the nose, with a big block so wide they had to build the car around it. The story starts with NASCAR's homologation rules. Ford wanted to run its new semi-Hemi 429 in stock car racing, but they had to build at least 500 street versions to make it legal. So Carecraft, Ford's off-the-book skunk works shop in Brighton, Michigan, got the call. They took regular Mach 1 sports roofs, cut out the shock towers, widened the engine bay, and stuffed in the massive 429 cubic inch shotgun V8. With massive free-breathing cylinder heads, canted valves, forged internals, and a conservatively rated 375 horsepower, real-world dyno push shows closer to 500 horses. Hooked to a top-loader 4-speed and a 3.2 traction, off Rio's, this thing launched like a rocket. Outside, it looked subtle, front chin spoiler, hood scoop big enough to swallow birds, Magnum 500 wheels, and discreet Boss 429 fender decals. Inside, it was all Mach 1 comfort, high-backed buckets, wood-grain dash, Hearst shifter, and a dash badge that whispered you owned a legend. 0 to 60 in about 5.3 seconds, quarter mile in the high 12S if you had the guts. Only 859 Boss 429s were built in 1969, each hand-fitted at Carecraft. A few were street-raced, but most ended up parked in garages, too expensive and finicky for daily driving. These beasts were misunderstood when new demonstrants killed demand, and the wide motor made simple repairs a nightmare. Today, a real 69 Boss 429 is a six-figure unicorn. It's the street Mustang that proved Ford could play the big block game better than anyone when they really wanted to win. But while the Boss 429 flexed on the street, Ford was secretly perfecting the ultimate road course terror, a small block killer that ate Z/28S for breakfast. Top 4 1970 Mustang Mach 1 Q-Go 428 TSQA drag packed. Forget showroom glamour. This is raw, unapologetic performance. The 1970 Mustang Mach 1 Q-Code 428 Super Cobra Jet with drag pack was Ford's wildest mid-year shakeup. With race-bred internals, a full factory oil cooler, and 4.3 gears ready for launch, this Mach 1 was unleashed to absolutely destroy Corvettes and Camaro SS396s alike. By mid-70s, skinny tires and insurance hypes were killing muscle, but Ford still built a handful of highway-legal beasts. Q-Code SCJ Mach 1S stuffed with everything needed to dominate the drag strip. Only about 150 were ever built with this exact combo. From the outside, stealthy stripes, shaker hood, fog-light grille, and Magnum 500's classic style hiding deadly intent. Inside, it felt comfy with wood-grain dash, Mach 1 buckets, center console, and that Hearst's 4-speed. But beneath the trim, an oil cooler line snaking through front sheet metal, 4.3 rear axle, and heavy-duty suspension tuned for lawn, not comfort. These cars weren't just fast, they were sleeper hits. 0 to 60 barely scratches the surface. This Mach 1 ripped mid-13s on stock drag radios, and mid-12s was slicked. Dealers quietly sold them to racers, who never even mentioned Super Cobra Jet in the ad. The whole package was too anti-establishment for glossy marketing, so Ford let the cars speak for themselves at the track. Most Q-Code Mach 1s were raced until they blew or traded up for bigger blocks. Today, a true Q-Code SCJ with drag pack and 4.3 gears demands 6 figures. Collectors covet the specific VIN stamps and original oil cooler lines marks of a car built to destroy at the lights, not polished showrooms. But if you think Ford's muscle peak hit here, wait until you meet the final entry. A 1969 Mach 1 R-Code version so savage, the quarters vanished in a haze of smoke and rubber. Coming right up next. Top 5 1969 Mustang Mach 1 Air Code 428 Cobra Jet 4-speed. If the Mustang needed one car to prove it could go toe-to-toe with the baddest street machines of the 60s, this was it. The 1969 Mach 1 R Code 428 Cobra Jet wasn't just another pretty pony. It was a big block brute that turned every red light into a drag strip starting line. When Ford dropped the 428 Cobra Jet into the Mach 1, they knew they were unleashing a street predator, with its messing shaker hood scoop poking through the center, racing stripes down the flanks, and Magnum 500 wheels. The Mach 1 looked ready to brawl. Inside, it mixed muscle and comfort, high-backed buckets, faux wood dash, and a Hearst shifter that begged you to bang gears. Under the shaker hood sat the R Code 428 CJ, officially rated at 335 horsepower, to keep insurance agents calm, but real-world dyno pulls put it closer to 400. A handful got the coveted 4-speed top loader and 3.91 or 4.3 rear gears, the secret sauce for brutal launches. About 3,180 R Code Mach 1s were built that year, but far fewer survived the carnage of Friday night street racing. The real kicker? These Mach 1s were pure sleepers in the right hands. Unassuming paint colors, doggish hubcaps, no flashy Mach 1 details, just a brutal V8 waiting to ruin a Camaro SS or Roadrunner's day. Tuned right, they could hammer the quarter mile in the low 13s, or even break into the high 12s on sticky tires. Many got blown apart on drag strips, or parted out for other builds. Today, a real R Code 4-speed Mach 1 with matching numbers can fetch 6 figures. The perfect storm of style, power, and street legend. But if you think this Mach 1 was wild, buckle up. Next comes the Boss 429, a factory-built NASCAR refugee disguised as a street car. Get ready. Top 6 1969 Mustang Boss, $429. In the world of 60s muscle, there's Bass, and then there's the Boss 429. The Boss 9 wasn't just Ford flexing its engineering muscle. It was a street-legal NASCAR monster that made the Mustang bigger, badder, and more intimidating than ever. By 1969, Ford's racing division needed a big block motor that could crush Chrysler's mighty 426 Hemi on the NASCAR circuit. The answer? A brand new semi-hemispherical 429 cubic inch V8, massive heads, huge valves, and a design that breathed like a race car at 7,000 euros. But NASCAR rules said you had to build street cars to run it on the track, so Ford called Carecraft their secret skunk works to cram this hulking beast into the Mustang engine bay, a feat that required widening the shock towers and shifting the battery to the trunk. Only about 859 Boss 429s were produced for 1969, each one hand-built and stuffed with pure racing DNA. On the outside, the Boss 9 wore it like armor. Big hood scoop, blacked-out grille, Magnum 500 wheels, and subtle Boss 429 badges that told the world you weren't playing around. Inside, standard Mach 1 comfort with a twist. The Hurst 4-speed shifter and drag-friendly 3.91 rear gears were your invitation to launch this NASCAR brute off any stoplight. Ford underweighted the Boss 429 at 375 horsepower, but dyno tests showed closer to 500 horses when properly tuned. It was never meant for drag racing, yet owners who bolted on slicks and headers were pulling high 12-second passes, humiliating factory Hemis and LC Chevys along the way. Many Boss 9s were wrecked, parted out, or tucked away by collectors too scared to drive them hard. Today, surviving originals are 7-figure collectibles, holy grails that prove Ford once built a Mustang just to crush NASCAR competition. But if you think the Boss 9 was Ford's only secret weapon, get ready. Next is the ultimate Shelby sleeper that smoked everyone before they knew what passed them by. Top 7 1967 Shelby GT500 Little Red, X Pre-Pro. In 1968, Ford's Mustang wasn't just fighting on the street, it was at war for the title of the fastest, most feared muscle car in America. Enter the GT500 KR for King of the Road, the moment Carroll Shelby stuffed a Cobra jet into a Mustang and crowned it the street's new royalty. Up until '68, the GT500 already packed big block power, but Chevy's L88S and Mopar's 440S were gaining ground. So when Ford unleashed the 428 Cobra jet, a drag-stripped tuned big block with massive breathing capacity, Shelby grabbed it immediately. Only about 1,053 GT500 KRs were built that year, with a fraction being convertibles, each one an instant legend. From the curb, the KR looked menacing but refined. Fiberglass hood with dual scoops, functional side vents, iconic Le Mans stripes, and Cobra jet callouts that hinted this snake had more bite than anyone guessed. Inside, you got classic Shelby touches: roll bar, wood rim steering wheel, Stewart Warner gauges, and a Hurst 4-speed shifter daring you to use it. On paper, the Cobra jet was rated at 335 horsepower to appease the insurance companies, but everyone knew that was nonsense. True output was closer to 410 horses, and with the right gearing, the GT500 KR could rip 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds flat, and tear through the quarter mile in the low 13s, humiliating Corvettes and Roadrunners alike. The King of the Road moniker wasn't just marketing hype, it was the reality of a big block Mustang that could outrun just about anything in '68. Many KR owners pushed them hard at Friday night drags, but a lucky few tucked theirs away as the insurance crisis loomed. But the King's reign didn't last forever, because next up is the one Mustang that rewrote the rulebook with a NASA badge and an attitude bigger than any street racer dared to dream. Top 1866 Mustang GT Code 289 High-Pock Fastback. Before the big blocks took over the streets, Ford's hottest Mustang muscle was all about the high-revving Code 289. Back in '66, the GTK Code Fastback was the Mustang that made small blocks look savage. A lightweight street brawler that embarrassed bigger cars before they even hit second gear. The secret was in the K-Code badge. Ford's Hypo 289 V8 was no ordinary small block. Solid lifters, a hotter cam, bigger carb, and stronger internals pushed it to a screaming 271 horsepower at over 6,000 RPM. Wild numbers for the era. Ford built only about 5,469 K-Code Mustangs total between '65 and '67. And the Fastback GT version, even rarer. On the outside, a 1966 GT K-Code Fastback looked subtle. Fog lamps in the grille, GT stripes along the rockers, dual exhaust trumpets poking out the rear valence. But real gearheads knew what that tiny badge meant. Inside you got bucket seats, the 5-dial gauge cluster, a wooden Ursing wheel, and if you were smart, a close-ratio 4-speed top-loader that let you keep the revs screaming. Most muscle buyers wanted big block torque, but the K-Code was a corner-carving, high-winding rocket that could rip 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and run the quarter in the low 14s. Not bad for under 300 cubes. It dominated SCCA events and taught countless GTO owners a lesson at stoplights. Because they were rev-happy, many K-Codes were raced hard, swapped for bigger engines, or simply beaten to death. Today, an original '66 GK Code Fastback, with its numbers-matching Hypo motor, is a unicorn, easily pulling 6 figures at auction. But if you think Ford's small block hero was impressive, wait till you see how the Boss 32 took that high-pressure spirit to the road course and left the competition eating dust in Trans Am glory. Top 9. 1969 Mustang Boss 322, Trans Am Street Assassin. While the muscle car world was obsessed with big block thunder, Ford decided to build a small block assassin that could out-heel, out-reeve, and outlast just about anything on a road course. Enter the 1969 Mustang Boss 322, a street-legal Trans Am warrior that proved cubic inches weren't everything if you had the guts to rev it to the moon. Born to dominate the SCCA Trans Am series and crush Camaro Z/28S, the Boss 38 was built from the ground up as a no-nonsense track pony. Ford produced around 1,628 of these beasts in 1969. Each hand-assembled to take on corners and quarter miles alike. Outside it looked lean and menacing. Aggressive front chin spoiler, hockey stick side stripes, functional rear window louvers, Magnum 500 wheels, and that iconic Boss 302 decal screaming this was no ordinary fastback. The fiberglass hood scoop-fed air to the high-compressed 302 cubic inch small block under the hood, a hybrid of Windsor blocker on Cleveland heads that breathed like a NASCAR motor. Inside, the Boss 302 stayed focused on the mission. High back buckets, a Hurst shifter for the closed Crasio 4-speed top loader, and a dash cluster that loved to watch the touch needle dance past 6,000 RPM. On paper, it made a modest 290 horsepower, but in reality, it could squeeze out more than 320 if tuned right. 0 to 60 came up in about 6 seconds, but its real party trick was how it devoured corners at speeds that made heavier big block brutes sweat. A well-driven Boss 32 could run the quarter mile in the low 14s stock, or dip into the 13s with slicks and a brave right foot. Surviving '69 Boss 322s with matching numbers are now blue-chip collector gold, combining brute straight-line speed with world-class handling in a package that defined Ford's Trans Am glory days. But, if you think the Boss 32 was the ultimate track weapon, wait until you see how Ford pushed the limit with an early Cobra jet that made stoplight showdowns feel like drag strip worse. Top 10. 1968 1/2 Mustang 428 CR Code, Sleeper, Street Monster. Sometimes the baddest Mustang on the block didn't need stripes or spoilers, just a monster under the hood and a driver with something to prove. Meet the 1968 1/2 Mustang 428 Cobra Jet, a sleeper so quick it turned local street races into legends overnight. By 1968, Ford was fed up with losing drag strip bragging rights to Chevy's 396 Chevelles and Mopars 440 Runrunners. So they dropped a bomb on the muscle car world, the 428 Cobra Jet. Just a few thousand true R-code rolled out in 1968 1/2. These early mid-year cars are among the most coveted today. From the curb, the 428 CJ didn't shout about its power. Many came as bare-bones fastbacks or couped dog-ditch habscaps, no fancy badging, just the R stamped in the VIT. But under that subtle hood scoop lurked Ford's nastiest big block, a 428 cubic inch brute with 10.61 compression beefed internals, ram air induction, and factory underrated 335 horsepower. But real dyno numbers pushed well past 400. Inside, it was all business. Optional attach on the dash hearse shifter for the 4-speed top loader, and minimal frills. It weighed less than Mopar's big bruisers, making it a rocket off the line. 0 to 60, a hair over 6 seconds to stop, but the real fun was the quarter mile. With open headers and sticky tires, these R-codes could dip into the high 12s, embarrassing bigger, flashier rivals that underestimated Ford's sleeper. Many early R-codes were bought by local racers who ran them hard and put them away wet. Surviving originals with matching numbers and factory gear are six-figure street legends today, proof that sometimes the Mustang's meanest punch came wrapped in a plain J package. The 1968 1/2 428 Cobra Jet R-code proved one thing: never underestimate the Mustang, because behind every humble fastback could be a monster just waiting for that green light. So which one of these roaring legends would you take for a spin down the strip, or are you brave enough to own them all? Drop your favorite in the comments below, and let's see which Mustang rules our muscle cars revolution family. If you love rare muscle, forgotten prototypes, and untold stories from the golden era, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and ring that bell icon so you never miss a tire melting episode. Thanks for watching. Keep that pedal down, and I'll see you in the next ride.